Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. This is the Ricoh GR3X, and this and the regular GR3 have two focusing modes that can be confusing to many GR users. The first one is the snap focus distance, and the other one is snap distance priority, and especially the latter seems to be very confusing to many GR3 and 3X users. However, after watching this video, you'll understand the difference between those two focusing modes, and you'll be able to enjoy both focusing modes, and you'll be able to take advantage of both modes in your photography. These two focusing modes are related, but they also have some fundamental differences. Both focusing modes make street photography extremely quick, and they also allow you to capture any like a quick unexpected event or incident on the street very quickly, and probably quicker than with any other camera. Let's first cover the snap focus distance because it's easier to understand, and also the naming is pretty self-explanatory. You can access the snap focus distance in the menu, but you can also program it on one of the buttons, which I highly recommend because then it's much quicker to access whenever necessary. The basic idea is that you manually pre-select a certain focusing distance, and after that, whenever you turn on your camera, the camera already pre-focuses to that pre-selected distance. So whenever you need to take a picture, there's no focus action at all, and that makes it super quick to take the pictures. First of all, you don't have to worry about focusing at all, and the camera acts quicker because it doesn't have to focus at all. You have 8 focusing distances to choose from between 0.3 meters and infinity. You can use any exposure mode, and of course your shooting aperture determines the depth of field. And when you half press the shutter, you can see the depth of field scale on the left side of the screen. For example, if your shooting aperture is f2.8 wide open, you have to evaluate the distance pretty accurately because there's not that much depth of field. However, if your shooting aperture is f8, you will have a lot of depth of field, and you have some tolerance. You don't have to evaluate the distance so exactly to from your camera to your subject. So that's the snap focus distance, pretty self-explanatory in the end. You pre-select a certain focusing distance, and every time you turn on the camera is focused to that distance. There's no autofocus and no focus action whatsoever, and that makes it very quick to operate the camera in any quick unexpected situation, wherever that situation happens. As always, I encourage you to experiment with this feature because that is the only way to learn the feature and to learn to use it in your photography, because we all work in slightly different ways when we create our photography or our content. And now let's cover the snap distance priority. It was added in one of the firmware updates, but I don't remember anymore what the version number that was, but it was definitely not one of the original features of this camera when this camera was launched. First of all, I think the naming is a bit weird. Snap distance priority. It doesn't really tell you much. But what if I told you it's like a depth of field priority? I think that makes it a little bit easier to understand. This one you can access in the menu, but you can also program it on one of the buttons, which I highly recommend because then it's easier and quicker to access whenever needed. Normally, with any camera, you would manually choose a suitable f-number aperture to cover the depth of field that you require in your scene, in your photograph. But with the snap distance priority, you would first manually choose the focusing distance, and then you would choose your required depth of field, and then the camera will automatically select a suitable aperture to cover your requested depth of field. So essentially it is like a depth of field priority mode. You have the same exact focusing distance options as you have in the snap focus distance mode. But then you also have 3 different depth of field options. And you have the depth of field scale visible on the left side of the screen all the time. In snap distance priority mode, the exposure is basically fully automatic. You cannot manually choose your aperture or shutter speed, but you can manually set your ISO. The only way to control your shutter speed is to use auto ISO and set the minimum shutter speed for that. In this case also, I highly encourage you to experiment with the snap distance priority mode. Once you make a few test pictures, you'll quickly get the hang of it and you'll understand how it works. It's not so confusing after all. Think of it as a depth of field priority mode, and it probably becomes slightly easier to understand. So when and where to use these focusing modes? I think the snap focus distance is better whenever the depth of field is not your priority. And also in low light, it's better because you can choose whatever aperture you want. And in low light, you'll probably want to stay at f2.8 or close to that to avoid excessively high ISO values. The snap distance priority is better in bright light conditions, and it's especially good for any kind of unexpected quick situations in street photography, for example. And because you can predetermine your depth of field, you can shoot a big variety of subjects at different distances and still get acceptably sharply focused results. In low light, however, it's not practical at all, because the camera will inevitably choose quite high f numbers, high for the situation anyway. And that will lead to either very low shutter speed or very high ISO values. So in low light, if you don't want to use autofocus, the snap focus distance is much better choice. I think both these focusing modes are really well thought out and they are great for a certain type of street photography. However, my street photography is not that kind of street photography, because I almost never shoot from the hip. I almost always compose my shot looking through the screen, and I have the touch focus enabled, so whenever I touch the screen, the camera will focus on wherever I touch on the screen. But if your shooting style is shoot from the hip, then both these focusing modes can make a big difference, and they will probably help you to capture some amazing shots. And please do remember to experiment with these features or any features, because that's the only way to learn your camera features and learn how they can help you in your photography. I hope this video helped you to understand these 2 focusing modes on both the Ricoh GR3 and the 3X cameras. If this was helpful, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that. If you don't live in Finland, thank you so much for watching, and I'll definitely see you soon in the next video.